My guest today is the incredible Fiona Oakes. Fiona, welcome to Double Espresso with D. Well, Fiona, you have been up since 3:30, which we are going to come back to because I think that's part of your morning routine. But you have made a name for yourself, not just in the space of veganism and with your animal sanctuary, but also as an endurance runner apart from the pack. You're the fastest woman in the world to run a marathon on all 7 continents and the North Pole. However, going back to your childhood, I think it was your preteens, you were very young and you lost a kneecap due to a birth defect or a growth defect. You were told you'd never walk properly again, let alone run. You underwent 17 radical knee surgeries, which ultimately led to you having your right kneecap removed. What is your memory of that terribly challenging time?
It's in the dim and distant past, and I tend to not dwell on it too much. Obviously, it was in a different age, and I think people have to remember that. There wasn't social media, there wasn't even mobile phones. It was tough. I mean, it was just like every day going into the unknown. I didn't know what was going to happen. It was literally very demoralizing. I kept going to the hospital and, you'd end up 6 weeks in plaster after surgery and then come out of plaster, and that operation would have done no good. But it was also at a time, and I think a lot of the younger generation can't actually accept this, that you didn't really question things. You didn't ask, there wasn't the sophisticated procedures that they've got now to actually diagnose things. So you just literally got on with it. And it was really, really difficult. I mean, this is at a time, and it was a very, very hard time personally with my family. My dad was in the mining industry, and in the UK that was just falling apart. He was on strike much of the time. This is at a point before there were furlough payments or sort of food banks. My parents received a knock at the door, and they said if they couldn't afford to feed us, they were setting up soup kitchens to go to. So it was incredibly tough. But as I look back, it's just part of me. It's part of who I am.
Through.
Yeah, you just get through. And in adversity, you do get through. And I think that this is probably why I'm so good at adapting to what other people perceive as challenging tasks or a challenging life, because I'm used to just getting on with it. I don't analyze it too much. I certainly don't I don't blame anyone, and I don't want to be a victim or anything like that, because life has taught me that I'm blessed. Despite everything, I'm blessed.
Well, that is a wonderful outlook. And Fiona, how did you go from there to running? What changed to get you running?
Yeah, I mean, it's a very, very, it's a convoluted story. It's really, really hard to cram like 40 years into 40 minutes or something like that. But after the surgeries, I'd literally missed all my education. Bearing in mind, we go back to the fact there was no homeschooling, no Zoom meetings. I was literally left, cast aside by school. Mum did what she could, but she was a student nurse. So it was my godfather who said, she's got to get a skill set after all these surgeries. He enrolled me at a college in Oxford to become a secretary, which probably wasn't the best role.
Hard
for
to
me.
see that one now.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, you can't imagine me as a secretary, can you? I mean, my poor bosses. I mean, back in the 90s, what have we got here? I came to London then to work as a secretary. Got very much into cycling, push bike riding, because I knew that I'd been told that I could never ever do anything high impact sport, but in Oxford cycling was the big thing. So I got into cycling, and then things moved forward, and had an opportunity of living my dream, which had always been to have an animal sanctuary. And back in 1996, that came to fruition. And the idea was that I would just dedicate all my time to caring for animals at the sanctuary.
And what was the genesis for that? Because you were a vegan, weren't you, from a very early age, from when you were, I think, 6?
My parents certainly weren't vegetarian or vegan. I tend to think with this sudden development of veganism, or plant-based living. Everybody's had the facts put in front of them, and now they're making decisions. I kind of made the decision without the facts and the reasons. And as my life is developing, I'm kind of doing it the opposite way around and realizing the reasons. But back in that day, it was simple. It was just, I loved animals. I've always had this direct contact with animals that I probably didn't necessarily have with humans. And having this dream of nurturing animals seemed the next progression from actually just not eating them. That was the next thing, to care for them. But after a few years of doing that, and I did other things as well, I joined the Retained Fire Service because I'm very, very active. That's the one thing I would advise to anyone. Know your strengths. Don't dwell on
100%.
your weaknesses. Know your strengths.
More.
Discover your strengths and kind of manipulate them and exploit
and
them.
Amplify them, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I was kind of doing that. And everything I do in some way indirectly works out as to whether it will benefit the animals. So you think, well, you joined the fire brigade. Yeah, but back 20 years ago, there weren't many women in the fire brigade. I was the first in our division. So I thought, okay, this is an opportunity not just to fulfill a need in me in terms of, physically, it earned some money for the animals in the sanctuary, but it also gave me an opportunity to introduce a concept to a group of people, an audience that wouldn't necessarily be exposed to it, i.e. veganism in the fire brigade.
Can I ask you, Fiona, going into the fire, what was the appeal?
I think it was a little bit of everything, but helping others. Being able to help others was a big thing for me. Being a useful and productive member of society and using what time I have for the benefit of others.
And that stayed with you, right? Ever since.
Yeah, I am a very kind of, I don't crave physical things, but I am quite greedy in terms of ambition. I'm not ruthless with ambition, but I know, I'm very well aware, and I think that the time I spent in terms of wasted as a teenager, in and out of hospital.
No fault of your own, by the way, of course.
No fault of my own. It was a time that made me very acutely aware that life is short and you don't have an awful lot of time to make a difference. So every minute must count. That's the great imperative with me.
So Fiona, you today, and I know that you're up most days at 3:30 and you go on and for as long as you have to, often into the middle of the night, with the animals and looking after them and nurturing them and saving them, because many of them are rescue animals. Where did you find time to start running in all of that?
I started running because I was quite frustrated at the negativity towards veganism, and I soon realised that no matter how many animals I physically helped at that moment, there were billions out there that I could not do anything for. Me not eating them was not enough. Nobody knew that I didn't particularly eat them. You know what I mean? Nobody knew that I'm an enormously strong individual, firefighting and whatever I'm doing, caring for the animals. It's very, very physical work. But I wanted to just say in a very positive and proactive way, hey, and by the way, guys, guess what? I'm vegan. So I kind of thought, well, what can I do? I'm not an academic. I have got this proclivity towards physical things. I'm strong. And at the time, Paula Radcliffe was running marathons and she was achieving flamboyant press coverage. And it got all the hashtags. That event had particularly got the hashtags which appealed to people, in that it was billed as the toughest event in the athletic calendar, mentally, physically, to get round a marathon. And that's something else I'll say. 20 years ago, there weren't the events there are now.
No, quite. It's
marathon
evolved.
Running it's pretty serious stuff, if you ran a marathon, that was the ticket. That was the definitive stamp. You're tough. So ideally, I thought, well, I wonder if I could just compete in and hopefully complete a marathon. And as a vegan woman or person, then that's got to show that it's not prohibitive. There's not this idea that you can't be strong just eating plants. And that's what got me into it. I didn't know that I could run. I mean, I knew that I was fit in terms of I knew I'd passed a bleep test to get in the fire brigade.
So, but when did you realise, given what you'd gone through in your childhood with your surgeries and your knee issue, when did you realise that you could run? Because not everybody can run. It's your point about strengths, right? Not everybody is great at everything.
I still don't honestly believe very much that I can run. And I still do have doubts, and I still do have fears running. And
what are your fears?
People say fears when I was particularly at endurance events like the North Pole or in the desert, that I'm going to dislocate my knee, which I can do very easily because there's no kneecap to keep it stable. Even in those events, I know I can't run downhill. That's not a possibility for me. I kind of realised when I first did the London Marathon, and, after a couple of years of kind of running about, doing a few local events, there was no Google. You couldn't just search, sub 3 hour training plan, or no Peloton, or no nothing like that. It was all done by gut feeling. And I suppose when, the definitive with a marathon is, especially as a female marathon runner, if you can get under 3 hours, you're doing well. And I did that in the London Marathon first time, and it was kind of, wow, you've qualified to stand next to Paula Radcliffe on the start line of the race. You've qualified to run out the front of, before the elite men. You're with the elite women. It sounds bizarre. I don't dwell on myself. I'm not into myself at all. Everything I do, I genuinely do for the animals. It's really, really hard for me to say this to people, but I am just what you see. I'm scruffy, and I don't wear makeup, and I am very natural, and this is who I am, and there's no show. I don't do the social media. I don't crave attention. I've just done it for the animals. I don't want to be a star. I don't want my name to be out there. I just want the message.
And I know you don't necessarily see yourself as this, but you're a massive example to many that you can get out and do something, right? If you put your mind to it. It's about taking that first step.
It's about the mental side of it for me. I'm not physically blessed. I mean, okay, bits don't fall off when I run down the road. Sometimes feel like they're going to. It's mental discipline. I'm very disciplined.
Can we talk about that? Because I wanted to talk about, you have won many marathons. You've won many accolades. You've broken lots of records. In 2013, you won both the Antarctic Ice Marathon and the North Pole Marathon. I mean, seriously. And became the fastest woman to compete on each continent. And I know you sometimes talk about like an epiphany or a moment of change at the North Pole. Tell me about that moment.
My running has been a progression. Okay, I don't consider myself a massive runner, even though I'm wearing my vegan runner top. But I don't define myself as Fiona Oakes the runner. That's just part of who I am. So when I started running, it was competing and complete a marathon. Then obviously it's sub 3 hours, sub 250, sub 240 that I wanted to run. Then it's okay. I'm challenging myself. I'm spending a lot of time doing this. Is it worth it? Am I getting the results I wanted? So I kind of, in 2012, I did I was friends suggested. My friend called Paul. If people think he's your friend, what do your enemies tell you to do? But he suggested do the Marathon des Sables. It's the toughest race on the planet. If you do it, that's got to really hit home with it's kind of this sexy kind of unknown event in the desert. So I did that in 2012.
But can I stop you there for a second? Because obviously it is considered the toughest foot race in the world with these 250k across the Sahara. But you were the subject of a feature-length documentary, Running for Good, which talks about your life and also your participation in that race. And, I know you're not going to say this, I'm going to say it, sorry, Fiona, but you went into that race the first time on antibiotics. You'd been very unwell. You weren't feeling great, and you were just going to see how it went. How did you cope?
Well, what the film doesn't actually tell you is that I'd done it twice before. So in 2012, I did the Marathon des Sables. And the week before I went out there, I think he alludes to it in the film, I fractured 2 toes. So I had to go out to the toughest foot race on the planet with 2 fractured toes. And it was absolutely brutal. It was the most brutal thing I've ever done. I remember on the long stage, I was running with a group of, well, I say running, we were more crawling, with a group of guys. And I was we got to the halfway stage of the long stage, which I think was about 80, 90K that year. And the guys wanted to rest. I didn't. I was in that much pain. And I took this makeshift bandage off my toes. And I said to another guy, what do you think that is on my foot? Because it was dark and my head torch wasn't that great. And he said, well, on first assessment, I think that's the bone sticking out of your little toe. And I'd rubbed all the skin off my little toe trying to compete. And all I could think of was, at that particular point, please don't tell anyone, because I don't want them to pull me out of the race. I desperately want to be the first woman to complete this, vegan woman, to complete this race. And I did that. But it was brutal, but beautifully brutal.
Can you elaborate on that? Beautifully brutal. I mean, how did you keep going? Because it's long, it's hot, the conditions are extreme, the sandstorms and so forth. How did your mind help you to keep putting one foot in front of another?
I was always well aware that if the vegan woman didn't complete the race, that would probably be put down. Oh, she's obviously got brittle bones, she's got broken toe, she's got, she's vegan. That was almost. And also the fact that I suppose it is in kind of some bizarre way, the more pain. I like to sample the suffering, I suppose, so that I can understand the suffering of others better. So I want to absorb it all, absorb all the suffering, absorb all the denial and the hardships, and carry that in my heart, mind and soul when I come back into my relatively comfortable situation, even though I do have to get up at 3:30 in the morning and work very hard. And I want to always have that in my mind, that this could be a lot worse. Don't dwell, don't think you're that hard done to, because you're not.
What have you learnt about yourself if you stand back objectively?
The strength that I have is the mental ability to just get on with the task. I am very, very tough mentally. I have an inner desire in me to help others, that I, especially the animals and people, that cannot be extinguished. I really do not put myself. I'm not concerned about myself and my own well-being, and to the exclusion of others. I will drive myself very, very hard. That is my strength. It's just about a model. It's just about life is a model. Whatever you're doing, I just want to do my best, and I want to be the best I can without harming others. I look back at my running and the events that I've got coming up, and I can honestly say, hand on heart, it's all been done very honestly. It's just grit.
Do you enjoy it? Like, if you think of the next event that a race you're going to run, I'd be lovely if you could share that with us. Are you excited about that? Is it very goal oriented, or are you kind of excited about being in the game as such?
I'm excited about the fact that, I can get out there and run every day. With the uncertainties that have been going on with over the past 2 years, I suppose I've just adapted I was very, very, I was back to Marathon des Sables supposed to go back in 2020, and the race was cancelled the week before. I ran my own distance here to get it out of my system, because bearing in mind, I've been focusing on that particular week of that year. I would be running 250 kilometres. And I think you just need to release yourself from that and do it. Yeah. So I did the event here, just ran around. And I suppose I've adapted this idea that I think people do become very wound up with focusing on things in the future and missing the present. So for me, I mean, I pretty much run 2 hours every day. And that's now my event. My life is an event, rather than the Marathon des Sables or Coastal Challenge, or I've got a potential 40-miler coming up. The devastation of focusing on things in the future that may not happen, you're missing today. So today's event will be to care for the animals and to run for 2 hours. And that will be my mini event for today. there are no guarantees in life. You learn that there are no guarantees. Do I love it? I love the fact that I can do it. Yes, I mean, sometimes when you're out on alone, I like to be in the wilderness. I like to be alone. Yeah, I look up and I think, how blessed am I?
This is something you've been promoting for a very long time, a sort of ethical vegan lifestyle. What do you think has changed since you started really shouting out about this via your running?
I am concerned about the commerciality of veganism at the moment. It's like every other word is vegan now, and everybody's jumped on this kind of bandwagon. I'll just stamp it vegan and we'll sell. I am concerned about the amount of super processed foods that are now available. Because my form of veganism is not today's form of veganism. It's in a very outdated way. For me, veganism was always about very, very basic and humble living. Just plants. It wasn't about expensive replacements of this, that and the other. I've never had any sort of vegan ice creams. I've never craved that sort of thing because I've never had it.
What do you think needs to shift in the kind of mainstream narrative today? What things, or what one thing do you think would help shift the narrative in a more wholesome, complete, constructive way?
I don't like the social media toxicity and aggression that's on there. And I just wish that people could, if they're going to be upset about things, they seem to get upset about things that don't really matter. I can't understand how you're upset about something so minuscule. Get upset about the fact that a massive percentage of the world's population have got no food. Get upset about the fact that there are people out there dying unnecessarily. They've got no water. Look around at the blessings that you have in the Western world. You turn the tap on, water comes out. Start appreciating the very, very basic things. Get closer to nature. That's what it is about me. Get closer to nature. Create your own food. Cook from scratch. Don't just go down the vegan aisle and think, look at me, I'm great. I'm buying from the vegan aisle now, and that's job done. That's not job done. I think we just need to honestly embrace ourselves a little bit more. Get to know ourselves. Know yourself. And rather than constantly focusing on what others are doing, look at what you're doing. Look inwardly rather than outwardly all the time and judgmentally. And for me, I go by my heart, what I feel is right, not what people are constantly telling me is right. And that just might be just outdated. I'm probably just very outdated. I mean, people ask me, well, how do you run as fast as you do? How do you keep going? How do you do this? How do you do that? I don't even have a Garmin or anything. I don't need somebody at the end of a Peloton machine shouting, great, I don't need to. I can motivate myself because I've got this belief I'm doing it for a reason.
It's about looking inward, right? Like knowing who you are. And one of the things I've talked about on my podcasts is, and I say this to my children, we're all different. We're all eagles, and we should fly solo until we find the right eagles or right others to be with. And it is about knowing and appreciating that you are different and that genetically and biologically we're unique, and understanding what our motivations are. And I think very often we're so governed by our intellect which doesn't sit with our intuition and how we feel about ourselves, how we feel about life. And that is a journey inward. One of my guests, an incredible woman called Christine Handy, calls it an inside job. You got to look inside to work out who you are. So Fiona, you live a life which is quite monastic in some ways. You're very contained with your diet and eating once a day, and your life is really devoted to the things that you believe in. And I know the time that you spend with the animals is extensive, right? It's all day and often all night. What does luxury mean to you, and what would be a luxury for you?
Luxury has been able to think that you've achieved your goals during that day, and hopefully, if you're blessed, you'll wake up tomorrow and be able to do it again. And realizing, honestly, luxury is going to a tap and turn it on and having a glass of water. Luxury is being able to walk, always realizing you're blessed to be able to do it.
Fiona, you've experienced much change in your life. You've gone through a lot of change, some of it not always by choice, just with your help when you're younger. What does change mean to you today? How do you feel about change?
I think you've always got to embrace change. You don't want to stagnate. You don't want to just be set in your ways and open to new ideas, but you've got to select the ideas which work for you within your own environment and your own mindset. Change is it on the whole, it's a good thing because that's how we move forward as a society. But you've got to be part, I think it's your responsibility to be part of positive change for the better. That's what's very important.
And when you look out on the horizon, I mean, you've got this big race coming up. What do you ever envisage a day when you won't run or just stop running?
I know immediately. I mean, I always say when I turn back from a training run and I don't do what I've set out to do, that'll be the time to say I'm not going to do this anymore. I love to be in the wilderness. I love to be in the desert races. I love to be in, the Atacama or running on the Skeleton Coast. I love to be in nature running. I feel very privileged to have run completely alone in the wilderness. It's all about compassion over competition. I'm just using the running as a vehicle. It's not what I'm doing it for. I'm not doing it for, Keegan came like, where's your trophies? I don't know. Mum, where's my trophies? I don't know. One down there that's been used as a dog bowl. Have you got like massive cuttings of this, no, I haven't, because when it's done, it's done. I'm not focusing on it. I'm not reveling in it. I've just done it for a reason. It's just a job that I've done for the animals, and it is all about compassion. And whether that compassion is extended to a human animal or just an animal, it's the same thing to me.
What have you learned about yourself working with the animals all these years?
How clever they are and how stupid I am. I've literally learned over the years that the important thing that I care for the animals, I care for the animals on their terms, not on the terms that I want to make them be cared for in terms of human anthropomorphizing them. I get amongst them as one of them. I don't put restrictions on them that I can only care for you if you behave the way I want you to. I accept the fact that they are wonderful, intelligent, free, noble creatures that literally should be allowed to be as natural as possible amongst each other. So seeing a giant herd of horses, young and old, male and female, all together roaming is very, very important to me. But beyond that, I love to observe them, and you can learn so much from them. And the one thing that I have learned from the animals, and I would say this to people, is we are so similar. Don't abuse them. We are all similar. Embrace each other rather than always trying to raise differences. Look at our similarities. Water, food, shelter, freedom, company, no pain. That's what we all crave. And I think that's what's particular. Do I love running? Yeah, I like the fact that I can, and I can be a little bit of a show off sometimes. If I see somebody running down the road and I think, right, I'll go and catch you, or I can do. I'm not a saint, but at the end of the day, I think I've learned so much from the ultra races, the week-long races, where you literally got all your stuff on your back, you carry it, you've got nothing else to think about apart from literally, as much as it can be, survival. And you learn so much about yourself, and you learn about what's important in life. If you're in the desert and somebody offers you a giant diamond, say, Fiona, do you want this? How heavy is it? Oh, it's big. It's a real big one. No, I don't want to carry it. It's got no purpose out here. Give me a glass of water, and that's got purpose. That's got real meaning. These things don't matter. The material things don't matter. That's what concerns me about the treadmill of commerciality. People are always being told, but get that, get that. And you're on this constant treadmill of never stopping, getting off and saying, actually, look how blessed I am. I've got enough. Let's indulge ourselves and enjoy what we've got. Enjoy the blessings we have, rather than constantly striving for things that aren't going to make us happy.
Well, we know that, right? That the material world will not make us happy, and that people, back to being an inside job, people need to go inside, they need to reconnect with the things that are really fundamental and be awake, in my view, not let their life pass them by. So Fiona, you've said the key words in my life are dedication, discipline, denial, determination, decency, and delivering these in my actions to hopefully benefit the animals. You know, I know you're very modest and gracious about how you see yourself and your incredible achievements. But what would your advice, as we wrap today, be to someone who, you know, looks up to someone like you and is inspired, but feels a bit stuck, feel they can't make the first step, feel they need to make change in their life and need to get on with it, but don't quite know how to go about it? What would you say to that person?
I'd say believe in yourself, and also identify, take some time away from all the madness that's going on to get to know yourself, to actually really connect with yourself. I'm fortunate, and I must admit, my thinking time is my running time. And I really learn a lot about myself because I'm able to just focus on one foot in another and my thoughts. And I would say, honestly, detract away from all this, what other people are doing and what other people are telling you to do, and look inwardly at what you want from life. What is it that you truly want to achieve? Is there anything, what's it, if you like, what is it all about? What is it that you want? And kind of focus on that. Just little things, even sound bites. But it is truly all about acquainting yourself with yourself, like meeting this person that is you and getting to know them as you would another individual. Get to know yourself. Acknowledge that life is like a balance. It's not going to be perfect all the time, and it's not wrong to feel sad, and it's not wrong to feel down, and it's not wrong to feel happy. And these is like a big cake you're making, and these are all the ingredients to make life richer.
Those are such great words of wisdom, Fiona, and inspiration and support for many. And I think you're right. Feelings pass, don't they? Even grief becomes lighter over time. Fiona, thank you so much for being with me today. I am very excited about the next adventure in your life, and I'm sure everyone else is going to follow with interest for the next stage. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Double Espresso with Dee, with me, Dee Sterling. If you enjoyed it, I'd love you to review and subscribe to the podcast so we can share these amazing stories with others. I'd also love to connect with you, so feel free to contact me via Instagram DM at @D_Espresso. Until the next time, au revoir.